Senator Dianne Feinstein of California, the longest-serving female senator in the history of the United States, has passed away at age 90. And in addition to leaving behind a robust legacy of activism and legislation, her death also presents a formidable challenge, at least for the immediate future, to President Biden's agenda and the American judiciary. But before we unpack all that, if you haven't yet, please hit that like, subscribe, and the alert bell. Maybe check out my Patreon. I'd appreciate the support. All right, folks, so yeah, it's a sad day. It's not exactly unexpected given her age, but Senator Feinstein has passed away. I want to read a statement issued by her office. James Sauls, the chief of staff to Dianne Feinstein, today released the following statement. Sadly, Senator Feinstein passed away last night at her home in Washington, D.C. Her passing is a great loss for so many, from those who loved and cared for her to the people of California that she dedicated her life to serving. Senator Feinstein never backed away from a fight for what was just and right. At the same time, she was always willing to work with anyone, even those with whom she disagreed, if it meant bettering the lives of Californians or the betterment of our nation. There are few women who can be called senator, chairman, mayor, wife, mom, and grandmother. Senator Feinstein was a force of nature who made an incredible impact on our country and her home state. She left a legacy that's undeniable and extraordinary. There's much to say about who she was and what she did, but for now, we're going to grieve the passing of our beloved boss, mentor, and friend. Now, again, because of her age and the fact that her medical and health-related struggles have been widely publicized for, I want to say, about 2 years, this isn't exactly unexpected. And before we shift to the politics of it, I do want to play some remarks made by her colleague and her leader, the Democratic Majority Leader in the Senate, Chuck Schumer.
Serving in this chamber, and every one of them would admit they stand on Dianne's shoulders. So Dianne's impact extended far beyond the Senate floor and far beyond politics itself. So today we grieve. We look at that desk, and we know what we have lost. But we also give thanks. Thanks to someone so rarefied, so brave, so graceful a presence served in this chamber that someone like that served in this chamber for so many years. In closing, let me just say this. The sign of a leader is someone who dedicates the whole of their spirit for a cause greater than themselves. The sign of a hero is someone who fights for others, who endures for others, no matter the cost, no matter the odds. And the sign of a friend is someone who stands by your side to fight the good fight on the good days and on the bad.
Well said, Majority Leader Schumer. So now, the fact of the matter is we do need to consider the political implications across this country of Senator Feinstein's passing. Now, for context, prior to her death, the Democrats enjoyed a 51-49 seat majority in the Senate, okay? And that's including the independents like Bernie Sanders, Angus King, and indeed Kyrsten Sinema, who for the most part caucus with Democrats, okay? So that contributes to the Democratic majority. Now we have a vacancy. Now, the good news is, if there is any good news from this, is that Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom of California is constitutionally empowered to appoint somebody to fill out either the remainder of her term or perhaps, if I remember correctly, I think there has to be some sort of special election as well, has to be scheduled for then someone to be democratically elected to fill out the remainder of her term. He will unquestionably appoint a Democrat, hopefully a progressive Democrat, and hopefully a progressive Democrat will be elected in the special election. So it's not really about the Democrats' majority that's the problem. That's really not what the concern is. The real concern is a specific assignment, a committee assignment that Senator Feinstein enjoyed, which was the Senate Judiciary Committee, which is arguably the most important Senate committee, because it's the committee that effectively gets through the sitting president's judicial nominees. And right now we have a Democratic president, Joe Biden, and his nominees have to go through that Senate Judiciary Committee. The problem is this. The way that the rules are laid out in the Senate, if somebody resigns from the Senate or is taken off the committee or resigns from the committee or indeed dies while in office, their replacement in terms of committee assignments, you either have to get one of two things. You either have to get unanimous consent for a vacancy to be filled on a committee, which means just exactly what it sounds like. Everybody has to agree. Nobody has to object, or nobody can object to a vacancy being filled. That's unanimous consent. Or if there are objections, you have to have a 60-person filibuster-proof majority. And the problem is when Senator Feinstein was sick earlier this year and she was out of the Senate, temporarily, there were calls on her to resign. There were calls on her to be recalled somehow. There were calls on her to be kicked off the Judiciary Committee and replaced with someone younger, healthier, and perhaps even more progressive. The problem was the Republicans were in a position to block it. And so this is from several months ago when Senator Feinstein was alive, but she was essentially out of commission due to medical concerns. I want to play this clip. This is from progressive Democratic Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, who kind of clarifies the struggle.
How do you respond? I mean, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, what she's saying there is, I mean, empirically factual. You're not able to do what you would be doing if you had the Democrat on the committee that you need.
The best response is for Senator Feinstein to get better and come back. Because whether she's out of the committee because she has stepped down from the committee temporarily, or whether she's out of the committee because she's left the committee, or whether she's off the committee because she's left the Senate, the same process has to be gone through to replace her on the committee. So the Republican blockade that is presently preventing us from filling her seat on a temporary basis could just as easily prevent us from filling her seat in the Judiciary Committee on a permanent basis if she were to resign.
So, as Sheldon Whitehouse pointed out at the time, listen, Republicans at the time were blocking any attempt by Democrats to replace Senator Feinstein on the Judiciary Committee because it basically grinded down President Biden's judicial nominees to a halt. It slow-walked it, dragged it out, which means fewer judicial vacancies were being filled by the Democratic president. It was essentially an attempt to obstruct, to slow-walk, to drag this out, to run out the clock. Now the question becomes, now that she's passed, what will they do? And at the time of this recording, we don't know. Of course, she doesn't, not that she needs a replacement in the Senate for somebody, because somebody else who's already in the Senate, still active in the Senate, can be appointed to fill her vacancy on the Judiciary Committee. So it's not like we have to wait for Gavin Newsom to replace her as the Senator of California. But the question becomes, no matter what, who's going to take her spot on the Judicial Committee, and will Republicans allow it to happen? Thing is, we don't know. We really don't. I'm a cynic by nature, and given that Republicans, when Senator Feinstein was sick earlier this year and couldn't be present in the Senate, given that they obstructed then, despite saying that she's a friend and, they care about her. And as a matter of fact, they actually disingenuously use as an example, Senator Feinstein is sick and sure she's old, but, it would be ageist and disrespectful to allow someone to even temporarily take her place. It was all disingenuous platitudes. I have no reason to believe that the Republican Party will be any different simply because she passed away. Now, it would be even more indecent of them, but I don't see much by way of a limiting principle with respect to the Republican Party now. Hopefully I'm wrong. The Recount has posted this. Senators pay their respects. The practical effects of Senator Feinstein's death are big. The biggest state will get a new senator, and the work of the Senate Judiciary Committee, a pit stop for all new judges, now has a new roadblock. Okay. Feinstein's death opens up a seat on the Judiciary Committee. The committee goes from 11-10 Democratic majority to a 10-10 tie, but that's the same makeup as the last Congress when Dems confirmed a record number of judges. When many were pressuring Feinstein to resign in recent months, some Republicans signaled they would not easily acquiesce to replacing her on the Judiciary Committee. They publicly indicated that. But there are reasons to believe a vacancy due to death will be treated differently than a resignation. If Republicans did indeed block a replacement for Feinstein on the Judiciary Committee now that she's passed away, it would reportedly be the first time in history that the Senate blocked a committee replacement for a deceased senator. Now, again, I have no reason to assume Republicans would not want to make that precedent. The Republican Party, again, is a disloyal, bad faith, authoritarian cult of personality that has disregarded precedent time and again when and where they find it politically convenient. Now, I hope I'm wrong and that the recount is right and there's enough semblance of decency from the GOP to say, you know what, we played games when she was in poor health. Now she's gone. Out of respect for her, of course, we will allow Democrats to fill that vacancy with whomever they like. I just would not be surprised at all if they choose to do what they have been doing in the past several years, which is be indecent and violate precedent or create new precedent out of nowhere whenever it's convenient for them.